And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret. But all things that are exposed are made manifest by the light, for whatever makes manifest is light. Therefore he says, Awake, you who sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light.
Hey everyone, God bless you. So I wanted to do a video here today to kind of just show you this PetGoat3. Now, I was really surprised because I actually hadn't seen too many people posting about it. I'm not sure if maybe just a lot of people don't know about it. But there's a lot of, really important key symbols that are in here that I would like to take you through. And it kind of helps us to get a little bit of a better understanding about a lot of things that are going on in the world. Now, normally I would make this kind of video and I would put it, with all of the fancy transitions and the clips and, do it that way. But just because this is so content heavy, there's so much information to cover. I really wanted to be able to explain it as thoroughly as possible. So PetGoat3 came out. It was really interesting because it was really hard to find. Here's the original channel. I saw another person post it and then it was taken down later. So my assumption is maybe something might have been triggered with the AI algorithm potentially. So if that is the case, I'm not going to play the video, but I do want to talk you through it. So it starts off and we can clearly see, the president and the president-elect currently battling it out. Okay. And what's interesting is they kind of look they kind of like puppets here, but so they're standing on top. Well, the background is winter, right? We know if you've been paying attention to anything that has to do with, I don't like to say the word conspiracy because the way that they're painting conspirators, quote unquote conspirators now is domestic terrorists. Like we really, really have to be careful with what we say and how we say things. But I just want to point this out to you. So there is the dark winter, the darkness, and you see the snow, the dark winter being described, shown here. And that was something that this gentleman, I'm going to be careful not to say names to not trigger it as well. But this gentleman here, we know who that is, that this person mentioned in one of the speeches, the debate speeches. He said, we are going into a dark winter. And here it is depicted here, standing on an architecture that really looks like like Chinese, almost like Asian. And so we know what that is in connection to. I'm not going to say anything further than that. Now, next to it, we have this big pyramid in the eye. Okay, so we can see in the eye is kind of creepily going in circles on the top. And then all of a sudden we see this big black orb coming towards us, which is, I can't really say what it is, but if you look up anything in biology, this is kind of how they'll depict a certain type of sickness will look like this particular thing. So this thing right here, which is mostly associated with types of illnesses, particularly one that this president back here is associating with this place. I hope that we're okay in my descriptions so far. All right. And then we're brought into this eye. We're going to get into this eye in a minute. And then we see that it's on a crown, and it's on the head of this gentleman. Okay. And he's to represent the Antichrist. All right. And then suddenly we pan out. We see both eyes there, representative of Egypt, and this center here, the illumination of knowledge. Okay, so this is going back to the sun, the illumination. There's the pyramid behind, and his army standing there. And so we're going to get into some details again about going back to ancient Egypt and why our Lord really chose to show us more about Egypt and where the symbols come in with this. But I just want you to stay along with me here. Okay. And then the next thing we see is we see this structure, this man dancing, the structure of the Eiffel Tower, this gentleman in the black there on the bottom who is killed, and then as he's killed, this is put into him, and you see the number there on the with the barcode. Okay, so you can see that for yourself. Interesting. Now, of course, as you know, nobody knows where these things come from. I'm going to show you this at the end, but as we go through, there's this strange kind of stork that comes and goes to drop off a baby. It's carrying a baby, which I believe is actually is a representation of possibly the false prophet, and I'm going to show you why in a moment, because then he grows up and this is him. Okay. So here he is, and he's the first bowing down, and they're bowing down. There's people behind him, and he's in this kind of palace-like building, and they're bowing to a shrine. And as they're bowing, you cut to a scene of a pyramid. Here is the UFO at the top. The UFO comes down. It leaves two lights here. And I really feel this has partially a representation to do with the Antichrist and the false prophet. I'm going to get into that in a moment. And then you see the undertaking here. It goes into the bottom of this pyramid. And I'm going to show you, this is the Pyramid of Osiris. But before I really start breaking some things down, I want to get through a good amount of this first part, because then it's going to get into a lot more details. Okay. So he goes through, the next thing you know, okay, here he comes, he's going to get up, and he's going to start, heading towards that thing. So we know this is the Antichrist figure. I believe the other one is representing the false prophet. He goes in, which we know the Ark of the Covenant is seemingly lost, right? They open up a tile in this place, and these little mini UFOs come. They grab the Ark. Okay, they open up the Ark of the Covenant, and inside, this is what is revealed. And this paper, I did a translation, and it says basically that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Okay. And then we see world news, and this, I believe, like I said, the false prophet. And we see this picture here from saying, oh, the ark was found. And now they're claiming this is original Torah. Now, I believe a lot of this has to do with bringing up the false gospel of, you're going to see the gospel. So it says true gospel, Injil and Gil and angel written. Ahmad Muhammad is the messenger of God. So they believe to have found the quote unquote true gospel. Okay. Now this next thing says the gospel of Barnabas. Now this gospel of Barnabas, if you do some research, it basically is what the Muslims will use to claim that our gospel is false. Okay, so the gospel of Barnabas basically says that, the gospel that we have is the false gospel. The gospel that they have is the right gospel. So I'll just do a quick search for you to show you. So the Gospel of Barnabas here, okay? The religious text is a book depicting the life of Jesus, which claims to be by the biblical Barnabas, who is one of the work of the 12 apostles. Now, this was written later on. It was obviously thrown out as heretical, because they had only found, this text of gospel is late and pseudo pigraphical. So basically that it is incorrect. They found it only in Italian and another language. So, but this is what is predominantly used. Now we know that the Catholic Church, that Islam is a creation of the Roman Catholic Church. And so it doesn't surprise me that this Gospel of Barnabas was put out in Italian, because in Italian, and I think the other one was a Latin text. So this doesn't even go along with the original, Hebrew and Koine Greek that the other the Gospels are written in the Old Testament with the Hebrew. So, this was kind of thrown out, but this is what is referred to as supposedly about the account of the ministry of Jesus. And so here we go. It says it conforms to the Islamic interpretation of Christian origins and contradicts the New Testament teachings of Christianity. So it's this gospel that is being referred to, right? So anyone who preaches any other gospel, let that man be accursed. But that is what is going to be in the world news. It's going to be found. Here's this gospel. Now, I believe this man is here to represent the false prophet. Okay, and I'm going to show you all the research of this in a moment. Now we see an eagle flying through the air. This gentleman here, who you will see is associated directly with Islam, shoots down the eagle, and the eagle falls in front of this nightclub. And we see this thing as, now I believe this nightclub thinking about the horror and thinking about the infection of all of the world. I do believe, some people don't think this, but I do believe that the United States is directly connected with the whore of Babylon, we see in Revelation. So we see democracy there in the red, and then all of a sudden we see demo freedom. Interesting. Like, here's a demo of freedom. It's dead, right? The eagle there dies. That's a symbol of our country. And it's also funny that it's demo freedom, demo in red, freedom there in blue. Okay, and then we're taken to this scene, and there's a moon under the feet, and there's 12 stars here. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I do think this has a connection to the Revelation, the 12 stars with the woman who was clothed in the sun, and the moon was under her feet, which was to represent eventually the birth of the Messiah through Miriam or through Mary. And so I think this has a representation to do with this. I also think it's funny that if you just look here and then see this star in conjunction with it, that's also a representation of the flag of Islam. But I think that this is like a twist of that, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of that. But then it opens up to this book, and which is the Quran. And in the Quran, it starts to say things like that Muhammad is the one true messenger of God, and basically that no other God, right, but Allah, and he has no son. Okay, so they're pointing to a certain surahs. You can look 62, 3, and 64, and they also show Surah 55. You can read them for yourself to see for the Quran. Okay, what they're pointing to here as basically saying that we are blasphemers, right? And so this is going to actually tie into the Noahide laws. So I'll get there in a minute when you see this Israel coming together with the state of Islam. Now, if you look here, we see the bull. This is of Wall Street, right? The World Bank. We know that the bull, the market, we talk about stocks. Now, this is going to be, this is cut down. Okay, we see the gentleman beheading the bull. Okay, so this is going to be cut down. Here's the money, worthless. This gentleman here is stepping on it. This is Latin for trillionaire families. I think it's trillionaire families are basically being devastated, right? Because their money, you'll see it's all on the floor, littered on the floor, and he's stepping on the money is worth nothing. The American dollar is cut down and worth absolutely nothing. We know this is coming. Okay, this crash is coming. And then we see the American dollar there. It zooms into the eye. Okay, and then from the eye, we're taken to this flag here. Okay, so the Zionist nation of Islam. The Zionist nation of Israel. As the flag turns, it turns into this, and in the center we see this as Allah in Arabic. Okay, so the two becoming one. We have the nation of Israel becoming one with the United Arabic nations. Okay, then we see the third temple, and that flag is waving in the third temple, and there they come together, and there's the Dome of the Rock to come together. Okay, the two religions. Now, these two religions will persecute, right, the Christians, those true in the faith. So here's the entrance to the gate, and we see this guy coming out. We see this flag waving, which is the flag of Islam. It's a little hard to see, but you can see it down there in the corner. Okay, it's not letting me click on it. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then all of a sudden it turns around. We see this fighter plane, and this fighter plane, he comes and he goes to stab the eye of that thing. Okay, that the pyramid. Okay. So as that happens, we then see this circulation of these birds over this this box. I'm going to talk about the box in a minute, but this pilgrimage where Muslims will go is called the Hajj. Now, the Hajj, this here is called the Kaaba, which is the box, the black box, which is actually directly associated with Saturn. Okay, so the planet and the god Saturn, which has to do with Chronos, which has to do with time. And I'm going to get into all of this, so please don't feel overwhelmed if this is all new for you. And this is located in Saudi Arabia. Okay, that's where the Muslims go. They will go to make their pilgrimage. Okay, and they believe that this here, this cube, is the house of God, according to them. So they'll go and they'll walk around it 7 times. Okay, which is their belief there. Okay, so but that black box is directly connected to Saturn. And then we see the world and we see peace. And then from there, the peace actually explodes, right? As soon as they say peace and safety, sudden destruction. This is from Seymour Studios. I've tried to look it up, but I think that this is a play on words, like Seymour, Seemore, Seymour Studios, Seymour Studios. I tried to look them up, I could not. And then it says, before this, we wrote in the Psalms, after the message, my servants, the righteous, shall inherit the earth. There are a lot of comments in Arabic. Okay, so I'm not sure what YouTube is, who posted this or where this came from, but if it is like Hi Pet Goat, it's a similar thing, right? From Helio Font, Hi Pet Goat do Hi Pet Goat 2. And this is a lot of what we've been talking about. Okay, so let's get into learning a little more. So we saw that black box, which is directly the Kaaba, which is associated with Saturn. Now they walk around 3 different times or 7 different times, and that's to represent the 7 rings that are around Saturn. Now, what is the point of Saturn? So Saturn was especially celebrated during the festival of Saturnalia, which is in December, okay, usually held from the 17th to the 21st. The Roman festivals, the temple of Saturn, okay, he is directly associated with the Greek Kronos, who was known as the Lord of the Harvest, a member of the Titans. The Titans are the giants, right? So these are those hybrids, okay, that we learn about through Enoch, we learned about through Genesis 6. And all throughout the Bible. And so he is also celebrated and he's connected with the Golden Age. Again, the Roman deity Saturn, and he is represented by the black box. So you're going to see this black box of Saturn. I have other videos on it. You'll see it all throughout the world. There's one in Moscow, there's one in New York City. They're all around, and they actually are a direct representation of Satan. Now, I want to make this connection and show you. Now, this came out, a lot of people were talking about this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. It says, and this came out on December 22nd, but the conjunction happened on the 21st. How interesting that it happened at the peak of the winter solstice, right during Saturnalia. But the solstice of Jupiter and Saturn. Now, the way that the media was painting it was saying this was the Star of Bethlehem, can be seen in the sky after 800 years. My problem with this is calling the conjunction of the planets Jupiter, which, yes, is the king planet, and Saturn, the Bethlehem star, because any research that you can do will show the Star of Bethlehem would have been the planets if it was a conjunction. There are arguments whether it's a comet or whatever, but if it was a conjunction, it would have been the planets Jupiter and Venus. Why? Because Venus is considered the mother planet, Jupiter the king planet. There's a really great video, I can link it in below, that talks more about this, and this gentleman did years and years of research on this. This is his calling from the Lord to show this specific thing. And how amazing it is. But to say that it's Saturn and Jupiter is just wrong to say that that's what it is this way, this conjunction. So I wanted to wait, and that's why I didn't put it out right away. I try not to move too quickly, apart from hearing, what God has to say on the matter. But what I noticed here is that this specific conjunction, or calling it the Star of Bethlehem, being seen in the sky after 800 years, right? This Star of Bethlehem, that it was not in fact that, but I believe that this is a representation, just like we saw in I Pet Goat, showing that we can soon expect the rise of this gentleman here. Okay. If the black box represents this guy who they're waiting for, right? The Antichrist, the son of perdition, then it is very important to recognize that that is exactly who is, I believe, the signal is who's coming. Okay, because we have to remember that Satan is a copycat. He copies everything that the Lord tries to do. Is it possible that this conjunction is a sign from God to show, hey, guess who's going to be revealed soon? Guess who's coming? Because here's the one thing, and the biggest thing, and a lot of Christians are split on this issue, but I will say that the Bible is very clear. It says that that day, the day of the Lord, right, the coming of Christ will not come unless a falling away comes first and the son of perdition be revealed. There will be a revealing, an apocalypse. The apocalypse is the revealing. So, for those who I really, I take to the fact that we will see the Antichrist revealed before the return of Christ. And it says, let no one deceive you. If he says, here he is, do not go, do not go, right? Because people are going to be saying those things, and people will be deceived by great signs and great wonders. And so I want to mention that. So what I believe that was about, possibly maybe it was a signal from our God letting us know that these things are preparing to take place very, very soon. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into we'd also noticed that there was this alien kind of looking thing, this UFO. Now, the aliens are basically right, they're the fallen ones. Okay, so if you go back and you do your historical research, you'll see that the fallen ones, the Anunnaki, these great, they call them on History Channel ancient aliens, right? They were the ones who started this age of giving knowledge to man, right? The knowledge of the serpent, okay, the knowledge of good and evil. These were the ones who were to lead mankind into destruction. The causation of the flood, okay, the mingling of seed between the angel and human DNA, genetic modification, everything that we're seeing happening now today in the world, right? We're on this big loop, this big repeat of time. Okay, that's what's happening through even with the prophet Daniel. When you see the statue, it's a repetition of a cycle of time. And we're nearing the end of this age, going into, yes, the next age. But what we're there to, they'll tell you it's to bring this enlightenment, okay, to start over. Here's the AI machine. There he is. And you're going to see that he's basically going into space to start his goal is what he's supposed to do. Here's the eye there from 2001: A Space Odyssey. The eye, really creepy, that he basically has to go back in time. He's a space traveler, and then here's the story of evolution as they tell it with the apes, that we will that they had to give us this special knowledge in order to evolve us, okay, into the next stage. And so all of this, and there's the human. Oh, there's the Pope. Is that the Pope? It's some gentleman, looks popish, but um and then there's the human, right, to evolve us into the next stage. This is the whole thing. If you go to PetGoat3, you see the same thing. You see the evolution of man, and then there's this enlightened man, right, this next level of evolution, which has to do with the mind as they teach it. So that's what all of this attention to the aliens are, where Trump is talking about a space force and all this attention to life on other planets. And we've talked, no, they're talking that you're communing with fallen angels, with spirits, with demons. These spirit guides to guide you into the next stage are nothing more than condemned beings. And so, right, we don't condone these practices for that reason, but that's what this is all about. Okay. Now I want to jump into the next thing and how this relates in all of this: the rise of the Antichrist, the son of perdition, the rise of the false prophet. As you know, right, with everything that's been happening with the Capitol, you can read this here. They're warning of armed protests in all 50 states if Trump is removed before Inauguration Day. And you can watch my other videos. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do believe I have a little bit of a better understanding as to why specifically this happened with the Capitol building. Now, if you see in our nation, I believe that there's and you can hear the prophets, they're saying about a shaking that is coming to this nation, right? That there's a big shaking that's happening. And so, and you watch my other video, I don't condone any of the actions of the people that are a part of this, but I do believe that there's a purpose behind it in the spirit, okay? So everything you're seeing happening in your physical world also, I will cover, but is also a reflection of the spiritual nature of things that are taking place. And so what I believe is really going on here, I started to research more about this Capitol building and what it stands for. And I believe in a similar way that you see in Genesis, where it talks about how the people were coming together, they were of one language, and they were building, and there was all this building that was taking place, and what would happen if they followed through with the policies and the plans and the procedures and everything was complete destruction. Okay, and I believe that America is at the forefront of that with some of the things that are going on that I can't mention without triggering the AI, because we know about the persecution of those of us online so far. But I do want to say that what I believe is happening, this shaking, this confusion that's taking place in when it comes to the Capitol building, has quite a bit to do with the Capitol itself. Now, if you're not familiar with certain things, or with my channel, you'll know that I do not believe that we are a nation under the God that we serve, the God of the Bible. I believe that the God that is on the dollar bill, the God that is in that eye, which, by the way, you could do any research and they'll tell you that eye is a quote unquote Christian symbol. Nowhere in Christian symbology, nowhere in the Bible does it say about an eye, about illuminating oneself. So that's a complete lie that was created. I mean, especially in the Bible, if you even read about Nahash, Nahash means serpent in Hebrew. And if you read the story in 2 Samuel, he asks them, he says, pluck out your right eye. And so I just thought that was a really interesting thing, because Nahash, who was of Ammon, or the Ammonites, or the Amorites, were known as a giant race as well. Right, here's the symbol. There you go, going back to Gilgamesh, Babylon, witchcraft, rebellion, that none of this is of God, truly. And so I thought that it was interesting that he asked them all to take out their right eye. And, you'll see the celebrities that cover their eye as well, as one symbol of either the right hand or the left hand path of white or black magic. But that is definitely very relevant in there. But coming back to the Capitol building, so the rotunda, if you've ever seen, this is called the apotheosis of Washington. Now, apotheosis literally means descent to godhood. I've also covered this on this channel before, but you'll notice that he's surrounded. So this is when George Washington passed away. You see him painted. Here's the first president, and he's surrounded. Look, you can even see here's Neptune there, the god of the sea. He's surrounded by pagan gods. Now, tell me why in any architecture, for anybody who claims to have be serving the God of the Bible, why we would be dedicating an entire building as a temple to a pantheon of gods. Now, you're probably saying, Daniela, I don't know, I think you're just maybe making that up, or how did you even get that? Well, if you go to, which is a government website, it's actually part of the government website. It actually shows you, I'm going to temporarily stop sharing. This was actually a screenshot from the government website, and it says the design for the Capitol, you can go, and this is a .gov website, design for the Capitol East Elevation, Dr. William Thornton. He says the central dome and portico, derived from the Roman Pantheon, were two elements of Thornton's design, looking forward to the emerging neoclassical taste in art and architecture. And then it starts to go on about the Corinthian pilasters and things like that. But what was really interesting here is that if you go on and you notice that it was directly connected to George Washington. Now, George Washington, again, this is on the same website, it says was a known Mason. He was a Mason, and like the ceremony at the president's house a year earlier, the Capitol's cornerstone will be laid with Masonic rites, right? Fraternity rites, rituals. Okay, you can read all this for yourself, take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that the Capitol building was literally designed and built as a temple. What is a temple? A temple is a place of worship, right? We know that a temple is a place of worship. A temple is literally designed in order to honor a God. And so when we look at apotheosis, or this word apotheosis, the ascent to godhood, they are deifying him. And that is a complete, that is blasphemy in the eyes of God, right? To deify any human being is complete blasphemy, but it's just like the serpent, right? You will be as God. Open your eye, illuminate yourself, right? Open that third eye, come to know the knowledge of good and evil, and you will ascend to godhood. That is the lie. But anyway, so the apotheosis of Washington, and so the inner eye. And now I want you to know that two floors beneath is known as the crypt. 2 floors below, directly below the rotunda, was meant to be a George Washington place to rest George Washington, for him to lay in there. That was 2 floors below. Now the problem with this is that now the idea is to lay Washington 2 floors below. I'm also going to link in so you can look here. Hang on. So the history of the United States Capitol, I'm going to link this for you. We have built no national temples, but the Capitol. We consult no common oracle, but the Constitution. Guys, when I tell you that the Capitol building is a temple, the Lord says he will take down every high place, every place of worship, everything that is meant to honor a God that is not him, because he is the only one who is worthy of honor. And so we're deifying human beings like Washington. Okay. We consult no common oracle, but the Constitution. How interesting. Now that kind of got me to think, maybe potentially, if you're telling me that this Capitol building was meant in its design to function as a temple, you know that there are spiritual implications to this. So that also got me thinking, and it reminded me of a documentary that I watched, and I'm going to highly recommend it. It's called Belly of the Beast. I'll show you an image in a bit. But I want to show you some other images that I found, and this is going to explain back to PetGoat3 and the Isis Osiris connection. So I'm going to explain that in a moment. So if you look at the aerial view here, this is an image of Isis. So this is the belly, the pregnant belly. If you look, you can see here's the upper part, here's the stomach, okay, the belly, the hips, right? This is a picture of the Asherah. Go look up the Asherah statue. This is what it is, okay? The divine feminine. Here's the belly. This is the aerial view. Now, that is direct and in direct alignment. If you look here, see, here we go, the way that the streets are paved, direct alignment here to the Washington Monument, okay, which is a phallic symbol for Baal. Here's Baal, okay? Here's the male genitalia. Now that the idea is for this Baal, or this you're also going to know it as in with Egyptian mythology, this is the Osiris, okay? We know Isis and Osiris came together. Now there's a story in Egyptian mythology that has to do with this, how this particular part of Osiris was cut up into pieces, and she tried to put it all back together, and that's just a whole other thing, but it's really explained well in Belly of the Beast. But the idea here, and you can see, is that symbolically and through the energy, is that when somebody was to die, okay, they would be buried in the belly of the beast. They would be buried in the bottom of this Capitol building. This dome is directly over that, in alignment with the obelisk, which would then transfer that power, right? This is the belief, that power down into the belly of the beast, impregnating the Isis, in order to then give birth to the child. Okay, there's a picture, by the way, of the tomb where Washington was originally supposed to be laid, and that he was not laid. I'm going to jump back here. Okay. So that's why I believe a lot of this has to do with the Capitol building. So here's an example of an obelisk, which was also shown. This was the one that's placed in New York City. And you can see that it's telling the story, and it talks about the crown of Horus. Now, again, we know the enemy is a copycat. So it says the chosen of Ra, son of the sun of the sun, sun. And then we see glorified of Osiris, like the sun, life giving forever. Now, if I go down again, this kind of shows you the connection of the three. So the chosen of Ra, son of the sun, Ramsu me, I don't know what it is, glorified of Osiris, life giving like the sun forever. Okay, so the chosen one, right? This is again the Antichrist, the chosen. They're waiting to bring about their Horus. Now, the Horus, this is the eye of Horus, and we saw this in PetGoat. Here it is. It is known, according to Egypt, as protection, royal power, good wealth, whatever. The eye of Horus is similar to the eye of Ra, which belongs to a different god, but represents many of the same concepts. So this is the child, okay? The child, the birthed child, similar to how the enemy tried to replicate that of the story of Christ. But this is the Antichrist. This is what they are awaiting. Here's a symbol, like a picture of, there's Nicki Minaj there representing Isis, the pregnant belly of Isis with her child there. And so just to give you an example, now, I'm going to leave this out here. I have my own opinions about this, but it's not for me. You know, a lot of people are very divided on this, but I thought it was strange that this particular, person was actually laid in the center rotunda. There it is, in the center rotunda of the Capitol building. I just find that very strange. Part of me thinks that they don't know exactly who this Antichrist figure is. Like, they don't know exactly the person. And so when a prominent figure does pass, I believe that they are performing this ritual to see if that is the one that does stick. Okay, so where their place is very important. But I just want to go into a little more detail to show you that, they really are not planning that Congress does not serve the God, right? In God we trust. God is just a title for them. It is not the God that we serve. I want to show you a congressional prayer that was given by supposed minister. Now I'm going to just play this. You might have heard this, you might not have, but I'm going to just play this for you. And I want to just mention this very briefly, and then we're going to get into a little bit more detail, but I do want to show you this, and I want to show you how Washington really was supposedly deified in a lot of ways. So in the one way that he was definitely deified, I'm going to show you in a minute.
Pursuant to the 20th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the meeting of the 117th Congress of the United States, the House will come to order. The prayer will be offered by Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver, St. James United Methodist Church, Kansas City, Missouri.
Let's pray. Eternal God, noiselessly, we bow before your throne of grace as we leave behind the politically and socially clamorous year of 2020. We gather now in this consequential chamber to inaugurate another chapter in our roller coaster representative government. The members of this august body acknowledge your sacred supremacy and therefore confess that without your favor and forbearance, we enter this new year relying dangerously on our own fallible nature. God, at a moment when many believe that the bright light of democracy is beginning to dim, Empower us with an extra dose of commitment to its principles. May we of the 117th Congress refuel the lamp of liberty so brimful that generations unborn will witness its undying flame. And may we model community healing, control our tribal tendencies, and quicken our spirit that we may feel thy priestly presence even in moments of heightened disagreement. May we so feel your presence that our service here may not be soiled by any utterances or acts unworthy of this high office. Insert in our spirit a light so bright that we can see ourselves and our politics as we really are, soiled by selfishness, perverted by prejudice, and inveigled by ideology. Now may the God who created the world and everything in it bless us and keep us. May the Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us.
Sounds great so far, right?
May the Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace. Peace in our families, peace across this land, and dare I ask, O Lord, peace even in this chamber, now and evermore. We ask it in the name of the monotheistic God, Brahma, and God known by many names, by many different faiths.
In the name of the monotheistic God Brahma. Brahma is a Hindu god. I'm not sure what Hinduism or Hindu gods or in the name of that God. That is not the God that I serve. That might be God, your little g gods, but that is not the God of the Bible. And the God of many faiths. No, Jesus said there is one way. He says, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. There is one way, not many ways, but one way. This is New Age, okay? And this man is being titled as a reverend of a Methodist church. Like, this is my point, and this is exactly what is being dealt with right now. And so I just wanted to say that. Now, I want to come back to this, right? Just to show you, because that was a prayer that was said in Senate. And so in Senate, there's actually a congressional prayer room. And I thought this was interesting. And in the prayer room, there's actually an altar. Again, this is a high place, guys. This is a temple. You know that. We just learned this. So it says this is in the stained glass window. We see there it is, the new Novus Ordo Seclorum, New World Order, and there's the loving symbol there. This nation under God, they have it as a big G, but that's a G. I think that's the Mason G, to be honest. We learned that he was a Mason. That says, preserve me, O God, for in thee do I put my trust. Psalm 16:1. And there we go. So there's Washington there, right, who's deified in the same building. And then what's interesting is this here says, the architect shall maintain the prayer room for individual use rather than assemblies, and he shall provide appropriate symbols of religious unity and freedom of worship. So this freedom of worship, okay, is not really meant to protect Christians, but in fact meant to protect these Masons, okay, who all not only serve what they want to say is the God of the Bible, but in reality, it is his own God. So here's what it says about the altar. On the altar, 2 vases constantly filled with fresh flowers tell of the beauty of God's world. At the right and left are 2 candelabra, which is interesting that there's 2 candles. That's also scriptural. But here's the inversion, each with the traditional 7 lights. An American flag is at the right of the altar. In front of the candelabrum is a plain prie-dieu or prayer bench at which those who desire to do so may kneel. There are 10 chairs facing the central window. The walls are pastel blue. The ceiling is the original painting with clouds, blah, blah. Okay, great. But here's the important part. A shrine at which the individual may renew his faith in his God and his loyalty to his country. His God. I've covered this before, that Washington, when he received his vision, that he said that the vision, the messenger said to him, let every man serve his God. Okay, not the God, his God. That is so important, okay? Because to every man themselves, they are a God. That is so important, okay? And I just want to point that out. Now, again, I want to come back to this. Now, the Osiris shaft, this was also shown as in the original PetGoat. When we go to enter into this kind of like temple like building, they see that there's this underneath part that it goes in. This is what I believe. Maybe this is potentially saying like maybe that's where the ark is. I don't fully know, but there is the potential that it's saying that's where the ark is. Because look, here's the Osiris shaft, which I believe is what they were showing, because this is one of the few shafts or areas that you were able to go down and see. But a lot of things actually took place in in the shafts. This is where Aleister Crowley was also known to have gone down. It's believed that you're made a god in this place. This is what they believe. And there's a lot of rituals and rites that are done in Egypt, in the pyramids, in the shafts. And so I thought that was interesting that they actually located this, and they've excavated and gone through the Osiris shaft specifically. So here's the belly of the beast. I would highly recommend watching it. There are some prominent names here: Justin Fall, Tom Horn, and some other people you might know of Tom Horn. But I would definitely check it out. It gives a lot of good information about the mystics and the ages of the past. And so that's a recommendation, I would say. But I just wanted to show this all to you, okay, and show you that, this is very much real. We have to be wise to what we're seeing. We have to understand the signs of the times, and, to just share this knowledge, right? This knowledge that the Lord is really showing and exposing in this time. I pray that this video was a blessing to you. Go forth in love, peace, boldness, and perseverance to preach the message of the gospel. God bless you all.